Well, have a look at that bad boy. First fish of this session, and it's an absolute belter. We're doing it carpy style as well. Got a mat bag. These are big fish, so we've got to take care of them. But that is an absolute unit, and this is exactly why I love edge fishing. And hopefully you're going to pick up a few little tips and tricks about how to put more of these absolute crackers in your net. Fishing down the edge is one of the most effective and exciting ways of fishing on commercials for massive carp, but you've got to get a few things right to really make the most of it. I'm going to show you everything you need to know, timings, what bait to use, what rigs, and hopefully we're going to get stuck into some massive carp, because I brought you to Hallcroft Fishery and I'm going to show you everything that I know about this tactic. So let's get ready to rock and roll. The first thing that I want to run through is timing. I can't stress enough how important it is that you don't go down the margins, as in start fishing there feeding too early in your session. Don't arrive at 9 o'clock in the morning and expect to catch a carp after carp after carp. If you are pleasure fishing, make sure you do this style of fishing later in the day. The carp are a lot more confident the later the day goes on. These are big massive fish and they sit out in the middle of the lake. They're hard to catch out there. So when you want to make the most of the margins, you have to do it later in the day. And if you are in a match, make sure you don't start fishing there until about 2 hours to go. The carp are going to be really, really wary if you start feeding it too early. So 2 hours to go, that's when I'd be looking to potentially feed either side of my margins. And make sure you do 2 sides as well. Today I'm not going to do 2 sides, I'm just going to do 1 because we're filming and I want to concentrate on 1 side. But if I was in a match or a pleasure day, I would have both sides covered, because one can be better than the other. So I can't stress that enough, honestly. Don't go down there too early. The next point I want to run through is where you actually fish in the edge. I've referenced down the margins, but that could be anywhere. It could be here, could be slightly out from the bank. I'm looking for around about 18 inches to 2 foot of water. That's going to be perfect for this time of year. It's late spring. Carp are really active. You don't want to be fishing in too deep a water. So 3 foot is too deep in my opinion. I think you're going to get a lot of problems with foul hookers, liners. You want 18 inch to 2 foot. So find that anywhere down your margins. Probably around up to a next pallet is always a really, really good option. A little bit further away from yourself, around about 5-6 meters, somewhere that you can be nice and efficient. Find that 18 inches to 2 foot. Feeding. That's the next thing I'm going to run through. There's a few different ways that you can actually attack this. My number one is with ground bait. I think ground bait is such a good fish attractor. They absolutely love it. And especially when you're fishing in 18 inches to 2 foot of water, I'd always be looking to feed ground bait, just because it's a nice depth of water to be fishing ground bait in. And you can have micro pellets. I've soaked some micro pellets up with me today, so if I do get a lot of problems with foul hookers with ground bait, I can put some micros in. That's really good for focusing fish down on the bottom and reducing liners if you like, but my number one is ground bait. And I'm going to kick off today's session with, I've got a 300mm pot here. I've plumbed up, I've found about it's about 18-19 inches in depth, which is absolutely perfect, and I'm going to put a full pot of ground bait. So what I'm going to do, 300mm pot, I'm going to fill it, 3/4 fill it, and I always like to add a few micro pellets, not loads, and I've over wetted these slightly, and that's really important as well. You've got to have really heavy bait. So my micros are over wetted, they're really soaked, they're almost ruined. You couldn't ever put them around a hybrid or a method feeder, and my ground bait's really, really heavy and damp as well, but I'm running you through that in a bit. So to kick it off, I'm literally going to put 1 full pot on my marker, which is the end of this section. And it's really important now that you feed slightly further out into the lake from where you're actually fishing. So I'm feeding here and I'm actually fishing here. And you might be thinking, why are you doing that? I don't understand, right? The main point is you don't want too much bait around your hook bait, because these fish are massive. They create a lot of liners. And if I feed here, I'm going to concentrate all the fish around this area. And because the lake is actually shelving away, if I lay my rig up the bank, I'll show you this when I'm actually fishing, but if I lay my rig up the bank, my hook bait's going to be just above that bait. So when the carp are coming up that shelf, the first thing that they're going to come to is a ground bait, which is great, that's what I want. Then I want them to go further up the shelf and see my big hook bait. And that's just the best way I've found of attacking margins like this, because whenever I've tried to feed and fish on the same spot, I just get loads of problems. So now it's a simple case of, I'd actually leave that about 10 minutes, leave it 10-15 minutes, I'd be doing something else out in the lake, and I'd keep my eye out. If I see an odd swirl, if I see any activity, that'll give me an indicator to go down that edge and actually start fishing there. So that's my first pot of ground bait. I haven't seen anything yet, but it's obviously only been about a minute, so I'll be doing something else. So join me in a little while, and hopefully we're going to see some action down there. But that is the key point I will stress. Don't go down there too early. Find that 18-inch or 2 foot of water and leave it a little while, 10-15 minutes before you want to actually start going on it. The baits you feed down the margins, it's always my go-to gut feeling is I always want to be feeding ground bait. When I'm fishing in shallow water, as in 18-inch or 2 foot, ground bait's my number one. If I'm fishing in slightly deeper water, say my pegs, the shallowest water I'm getting is 3 foot, I'd probably look at feeding overwetted micros, which I've got with me today. So I'll always have ground bait with me. That's my go-to, that's what I'll feed at the start. Then I've got overwetted micros. And my ground bait is also overwetted, so everything's really heavy. So when it gets to the bottom, it stays there. I want everything really, really dense, so it gets to the bottom, reduces liners. So the ground bait I've got with me today is 1 part Green Supreme, 1 part 100% expander, and a part F1 Sweet. It's 2 pints of each, so I've got 6 pints of dry ground bait in a bucket. And all of these ground bits have got lots of pellets in them, high oil pellets that stink, really, really attractive ground bait for fish like carp. They absolutely love it. And to mix the ground bait, all I've done is I've got 6 pints of the dry ground bait in a bucket, and I've added 4 pints of water to it. So it's really overwetted. So when you're actually mixing it through, you'll think, God, this is ruined, it's like a porridge. But that's what I want, because all of those pellets are going to soak up that water. And leave it 10-15 minutes and whack it through a maggot riddle, ground bait riddle, whatever, and you'll be left with a really dense, heavy ground bait that's going to be absolutely perfect to feed down the margins. So, kicking off the session, how I'd go about it. I've got a 300ml pot, and I'm probably going to feed a full pot of ground bait. So I'm going to go literally about 250ml of ground bait. Then I always like to add a few micro pellets, just so there's an odd particle for the carp to like home in on. So overwetted micros, ground bait, full pot of it. That's how I'm kicking off the session. I'm going to my left today, and I found 18 inches of water, which is absolutely perfect. Now this is super important. I can't stress enough how important this part is. It's where you actually feed this ground bait in your peg. So you don't want to be feeding and fishing in the exact same spot. I've done this a lot now, and if you try and feed and fish in the exact same spot, you just get loads and loads of liners. You get real bad problems, and trust me, you don't want to be foul looking these fish. The 10 pound plus average in this lake we're in today in Bridge, and you foul looking them, and it's an absolute nightmare. So to reduce the chance of foul looking them, I like to feed my ground bait slightly further out into the lake. So say there, right, I'm going to give it a little bit of a swirl so it gets a nice mix. I'm going to feed my ground bait there, but I'm actually going to be fishing with my rig and my hook bait here. So I'm going to be fishing with my rig and my hook bait here. So it's about a foot and a half up the shelf. So I'm going to flick my rig and my hook bait here, drag that rig all the way to the left like this, and picture that I'm going to have a big area of ground bait here, where the fish are going to be homed in on, they're going to be, concentrated on. But further up the shelf, where it's nice and clean, is my hook bait, a big hook bait that's going to be really visual and attractive to the fish. But if I try to fish with my hook bait here, where I've just fed, I'd be having loads of liners. It'd be a massive issue. So to reduce that, make sure you fish slightly further up the shelf to yourself. So to reduce... So to reduce that, fish slightly further up the shelf, and it'll definitely reduce the amount of liners you get. You'll get a lot cleaner bites, and they'll be just be easier to catch. The hook baits that I'm going to be looking to fish, I've only got 2 with me because I don't like to overcomplicate a lot of it. First one is worms. So I like 2 full worms. That's a big visual hook bait. Carp absolutely love worms, especially late spring, just before they spawn. Worms are brilliant hook bait. It's got lots of protein in it. Carp absolutely love worms, especially when there's 2 there. Big visual hook bait, and they just seem to home in on it. I really, really like it. The other hook bait is corn. Again, visual hook bait, it's big. I'll probably put 2 pieces on there because silverfish can be a problem in the margins, like little roach, skimmers. So you want to fish a big hook bait. So those are the 2 that I've got with me today. I've just fed that ground bait. I'm going to keep my eyes on it. But to be honest, I want to leave it 10-15 minutes. I don't want to go straight in on it because if any fish are lingering around the area, I just want to leave it even probably 20-30 minutes just to give them fish a little bit more confidence. But I'll keep my eye on it, and if I see a swirl and signs of life down there, I won't be, wasting any time. I'll be getting straight down there. So come back to me after I've seen a sign, hopefully. You might notice that I've got quite a long length of line between my float and my tip, and that's for a reason. It's because I don't want that pole tip right over the fish's head. It's only shallow there, 18 inch, so I don't want to have my pole tip, really, really close to my float. I've got about 3 foot of line between my float and my tip, but I've got 2 number 8 back shots, which are keeping all that line nice and tight. So if I do get a bite, indication there, that'd have been perfect timing. Line of that. So if I do get a bite, I'm straight in on the float. I don't have to, I've not got loads of slack or anything like that. So have a couple of back shots just above your float. It'll keep everything nice and tight. So if it does whack under, you can go straight in on it and lift up. But don't have too short a line because these fish, they're really spooky when you've got, a big fish. They come in shallow water. You don't want everything really, really like tight together. So you'll see, I'll just lay that rig up the bank. And then 2 number 8 shot there, keeping everything nice and tight. And I've got a perfectly, set trap there. Everything's absolutely mint. It's laid on that slope perfectly. I've got my ground bait further to my right. It'll be to your left on screen. And everything's set, ready. All I've got to do now is strike at the proper bite. And this is another really important part of fishing down the edge. Don't strike at every little indication you get. The bites I'm looking for are really fast whack under bites. They literally flies under 1,000,000 miles an hour, or it keeps dragging under. When you are fishing with worms like I am, a lot of the time you don't get the fast whack under bites, but the float actually drags away. It's when the carp's swimming away with the worms. So that's what you need to be lifting up at. But don't strike at every little movement on the floor. You're not fishing for F1s or anything like that. And you'll see I've got all of my bristles sticking out of the water. That's again to reduce any sort of striking at liners. I'm looking to strike at them really positive bites. The last thing you want to do is foul up these fish. It's a nightmare. It'll break your tackle. And it just takes loads of time up. So striking at the right indications is key. A few indications on my float there, just little bobs bobbing around a little bit. Yeah, ooh, I cannot believe that's not in the mouth. Oh, scared me, that did. That's the sort of bite you need to be striking at. I just can't believe I didn't connect with it. Right, I need to reset that. To be honest, I'm going to put a little pole pot on and see if that'll settle them a little bit, slightly bit less bait. Be just ground bait. Let's see if this does the trick. And drag that hook bait up that shelf. Them two worms are just laying on the slope now. Everything's set perfect. It's worth noting I've got about 2 to 3 inches of line on the bottom when it's laid on the slope like that. It's important to have a little bit of line on the bottom. You don't want to be fishing dead depth or anything like that, because you're fishing with a big hook bait and I want it to stay on the bottom and be nice and stable. In terms of feeding, how you attack it once you start fishing down the edge, usually if I miss a bite like that, or if I get a big massive liner, I'll always look to feed again, because I'm kind of setting a trap like I am with a hybrid feed or a method. I want to create a bit of feed and keep my hook bait near it. Ooh, a good indication as well, that one. Come back in, another missed bite. To be honest, you don't usually miss many bites when they're down the edge, so they might be little fish. We have a quick switch to corn. See if that does the trick. 2 grains of corn. It could be little fish, they could. So I'm fill my pot again, ground bait. I just like to swap and change hook baits. Don't be afraid to try different ones either, because a change to corn can just bring a couple of fish, and you're not looking to catch, 50 carp down the edge. You're only looking to catch, say, 10, 15 fish down the edge, and you've had a mint day's fishing. So changing hook baits can often bring a little flurry of fish. If I drag that hook bait up the shelf, right, so it's set now, perfect. And changing hook baits can be a great way of just triggering a bite. And if you are missing bites, so if you're getting a lot of problems with little fish, I would say trying double corn is always a really good option. That's silverfish proof, that is. Not a lot of silverfish can, attack double corn. So it gives the carp a chance to actually eat your hook bait. Oh, I just had a swirl there to the right, which is a good sign. So I swirled to my right, so that carp was on that ground bait. And that, again, I can't stress enough how important it is to be fishing up the slope. Don't fish right over your bait, because it can be a nightmare. Oh, little indication then. That's why it's important to have all of that bristle out of the water. And you'll see it's quite a thick bristle. It's a nice visible hollow bristle, so it's not going to go under too easy. It's a JL float, it's 0.5 gram as well, which is quite a heavy float for only 18 inch of water. But I like that, it stays nice and stable, so when it's in position it's not going to move. The only time you should move is when the carp sucks that hook bait in. And a few little things about elastics and stuff like that. Elastic wise, I've got a red hydro in. That is my, oh, interesting indication. Red hydro, I'd always be looking to fish that when I'm fishing places like Hallcroft, Larford, anything like that. It's a brilliant elastic, just tames the fish. As soon as you hook into the fish, it's nice and soft, but when they bolt out of your peg, it just seems to control them. They don't seem to get up steam. If you use a nice, soft, light elastic down the edge, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to take my time with the carp. It's just not the one. When you are fishing down the edge, you need to make the most of the time that you're fishing down there. So having a nice, it's a good balance of soft, but it's still got a lot of power in it. So red hydro for me, that's my go-to. And in terms of the line that you use, don't mess around. I've got 022 N gauge main line and 019 hook length to a 12 XS hook. 6 inches long the hook length is. That XS hook is absolutely perfect for big fish. It's got a nice long point, razor sharp, it's got a big gape as well, so the hook you use is so important. You want a hook that's going to really hold a big hook bait, so when you're fishing with double corn or two full worms, that 12 hook is absolutely perfect. To be honest, I'd probably use a 10, but the rules state here at Hallcroft you can't use 12 as a maximum. But don't mess around with little hooks. You're fishing for huge fish down this edge, and the last thing you want to do is lose any fish because you've got to say a 16 on or anything like that. Hardware needs to be up to the task, like really heavy duty, because these fish pull like mad. And you don't want to spend the whole session playing fish. You want to hook the fish, have a nice balanced tackle like a red hydro, nice big hook, strong line, so you can basically spend maximum time fishing and catching. Oh, quite a few liners and little dips on the float now. Doesn't seem quite right with that little pot on. I think I might have to come back in and reset it with a bigger pot. I'm also not keen on, I'm gonna go back to corn, back to worms, sorry. Put that down. Reset it, so half a ground bait, little flicker micros. I'm going to spread it from quite a height now to try and draw some more fish in. So this is another tip that I'll give you. Rather than just being quiet and sneaking your bait in like this, don't be afraid of going, making a nice, you can hear that clatter. It's like that I'm doing for a reason. It's exact same as what a lot of people do at the end of the session. They just throw the bait in, it sounds like that, so I'm mimicking it. That can be a really good way of just drawing a few fish in, and I can already see a swirl on the water, so I know that's worked. They've come straight into that. The crafty fish, these. I think they're around that area all the time, and you've got to have it bang right to get them in there. So just sneaking your bait in sometimes can be really good if you've got a lot of fish feeding. But if you've not got a lot happening down the margin, make sure you make a bit of noise, just like that. Sprinkle the bait in from a height. Let them fish know that you're there. And going back to worms, what I've caught my fish on already. Going back to worms, I'm going to flick that hook bait to the right, drag it up the slope, and there we go, we're set. Everything's ready. And I'll probably give it about 3 or 4 minutes. If I haven't had a bite down there, I'd probably feed again. But usually when you've got it really rocking, you don't have to wait any longer than say 2 minutes. You get the carp come in, see your hook bait, whack, you're into it. But it is really a time of day thing. When you've got the timings right, it can be absolute carnage down the edge and be brilliant fishing. But if you go down there a bit too early, it's never quite right. They just seem a bit unsettled. But it feels right now. Later in the day, everything's looking perfect for it. That is a big fish. Woohoo! Definitely getting towards that time now. A lot of fish down the edges now. It's going to be such an important tactic. Late spring, summer. Absolutely mega when it kicks off down the edge. While I'm playing this one, I'm going to run you through the kit I've actually got on and I'm using, because it's vital that you use really heavy duty kit. Not stupid, it's all got to be balanced, but everything's got to be right, because you don't want to spend 10 minutes playing one fish. You really need to make the most of the margins, and it's why it's important that everything's well balanced, everything's correct, and you know, you've got the right hook on, the right elastic. I mean, these fish, look at how hard they're pulling. So you've got to have everything right. Starting off, I always love to use red hydro elastic. It's, as you can see, it just really controls these big fish. Got it in a side puller as well, so it's a bit like a reel. You can, you know, reel more elastic in and it powers up even more, but just take your time with them. They are big fish and every one counts. But red hydro, that's the elastic I like to use. Got it in a power kit as well, so everything's heavy duty. The Mainline I've got on, it's 0.22 N gauge, not messing about. That needs to be bulletproof. That's what's taking the brunt of everything. And then I've got 6-inch hook length of 0.19 N gauge, slightly lower than my Mainline, because if you do get a massive fish, say you foul hooks you and it breaks you, you'd want to make sure your hook length, oh, that's a cracking fish, is slightly lower in diameter than your Mainline, because that'll break first. You don't want to lose your whole rig, so make sure you use a slightly thinner hook length to your Mainline. The float choice, oh yes, woohoo! I'm going to run through float choice once I lift this absolute whale out of the water. That is absolutely massive. Jesus, that's bigger than the first. Wow. That is an absolute stunner. Tell you what, I'm going to put you on the mat bag. Let's have a look at her. There you are. Another Hallcroft Edge Dweller. Stunning common carp. Must be £10 plus, that easy. Cracking fish. And I'm going to put her back before she beats me up. And then hopefully we catch a couple more. Love fishing down the margins for these. So just slipped that fish back, and I was rudely interrupted when I was talking about float choice. It's a 0.5 of a gram JL, the float I'm using today. It's a really heavy duty float, fiberglass stem, nice and strong, foam body, but most importantly, it's 0.5 of a gram, which means it takes about 6 number 8 shot. And then I've got a really, really visible, big, thick hollow bristle. It's 2mm hollow bristle. Don't use too light a float when you're fishing down the edge in terms of weight, and make sure you've got a nice visible bristle that you can see and you know 100% when it flies under, it's a carp that's taking your hook bait. And then I'm running down, I've literally got, like I just said, 6 number 8 shot, literally a bulk above a 6-inch hook length of 0.19 N gauge, which I've already spoke about, but I haven't spoke about the hook yet. It's actually an XS spade hook. These are mega when you're fishing down the edge. They've got a really, really strong, big wide gape. It's perfect for a couple of grains of corn, 2 full worms. It's just my favourite hook when I'm using any big baits and I'm fishing for big, big carp. So I'm going to hook her up and I'm going to feed again. And a handy little tip for you, always keep your cupping kit just to hand like that, right close to my body, rather than say like this, just a few seconds at your waist, putting it down, your top kit down, grabbing your cupping kit back up. If you have it there, you can literally put your kit down, cupping kit straight back up. So I'm literally maximising fishing time. Handful of ground bait and a little pinch of micros, absolutely bob on that is. And I'm just going to repeat the process. So feeds about 1.5 to 2 foot away from myself. Just give it a little bit of a swirl. Spread that bait across a little area. Put the cupping kit back down so I'm nice and efficient. Put my lid down. And now I'm literally going to get a couple of worms. This is very important when you're fishing with worms, everyone. You've got to make sure your worms are dead, as in they're not wriggling around. So all I do to make sure that happens is I hook the worm in the thin end, just like a maggot, so I've got maximum hook point showing, and then I'll literally, it's gross this is, it's not very nice, but I'll literally run my fingers and my nail down the worm to stop the worms from wriggling. That's so important because you don't want the worms wriggling back over the point of your hook and potentially losing a fish. So if you've literally got to lay nice and flat so the worms are actually dead. A lot of people slap the worms on the water, but I've just found that's the easiest and quickest way of killing them. Just got to make sure that you've got maximum hook point showing and not going to run any chance of them worms like wriggling back over the top of your point of your hook. Indication straight away then. There's a lot more fish feed in there now. Got a couple of nice ducks in the swim, which are annoying. Go away, duckies. But it's, you know, it's later on in the day now. We're getting towards, you know, prime margin time now. Just feels perfect catching loads of big carp down the edge. Whoa, I nearly got taken out by a duck then, jeez. Imagine that. Death by duck. But it's obvious today that maybe I went on it a tiny bit too early in the day. I mean, you're talking literally an hour, a difference in an hour is massive. But it's been brilliant fishing, to be fair. I've not fished it for very long. We've had, you know, some cracking fish already. And I only expect this line to get better and better. The later you leave it, the better it will be. Oh, hell of a bite. Cracker. That red hydro just controls them, stops them in the tracks. That's one thing that I'll try and stress to you all. Make sure you use a nice balanced setup. That elastic choice is so important. Don't use too light or elastic. If I had a light elastic in now, I can guarantee it, that carp would be out in the middle of the lake and I'd just spend ages playing it. Whereas that red hydro just stops them in the tracks. Banging the cameraman's tripod there. But there's a massive fish and it's all of a sudden it's under control. Get the feeding right. Have that ground bait and micro pellets with you. Find out what's best on the day. Sometimes micros is better. But today ground bait's definitely been the best option. Oh, it's a lovely fish that is. Absolute cracker. But I have both options with you, ground bait and micros. Whew. Lovely carp that is. Bring her back up on the mat because that's another £10 plus fish. Absolute stunner that is. Hallcroft, any commercials that's got big carp like this, use the tips that I've given you. Use nice big visual hook baits, get your ground baits right, have some micros with you, and the key thing that I'm going to leave you with, get the timings right. Do not go on it too early. Leave it as long as possible and you will have a mint day's fishing.